Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Because it's time to write now.
Right 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 now.
Because it's time to write now.
Right now.
Right now.
Welcome to another daily motivation stream. I'm your host Kaufman, and today we're going to try to get some writing sprints. We're going to try to see if we can get any progress on our writing. How's the writing vibe for you today? It's Friday. It's the end of the work week for some of you and the start of the weekend for others, which means that it is a great day and a great time to be able to set ourselves up for the writing vibe as we're getting into the weekend. So I will be honest with my writing vibe. I'm not even feeling like writing right now. I am not even feeling like it. But you know what? If you don't feel like writing, write anyways. So that is my motto, and that is the vibe, as we all know. So, I mean, beyond that, and put a dragon on it. So, you know, one of the two, depending on the day. Courtney, ML, welcome, my friends. Hope the writing vibe is treating you well today. Hopefully we're going to be able to help motivate each other and see just where we end up for today's writing sessions. So we're going to be doing we're going to be doing a couple writing sprints. So we'll see how we feel after a couple writing sprints. That is what I promise. And by the way, welcome to the community. I'm Kaufman. I'm on a mission to help writers with the process, lifestyle, and mindset that it takes to be a writer. Because writing's a journey, and with a community, it is made so much easier. So come join us because we are starting right now. All right. So as you can see, I already have my screen queued up. I was like, I think I am ready. I was like, I'll see that. Maybe play around with that. Okay. So I'm going to queue us up for the first writing sprint. We're going to do 25 minutes. And then make sure to come hang out. We'll chat it up a bit more during the break and see how everyone is feeling. So I am all ready. I got 25 minutes on the clock. Whether you are brainstorming, writing, or editing, that's all part of the process. Come join us because it's time to write now. Writing sprint done. Wonderful, wonderful. How did that writing sprint treat you? Were you actually able to make any progress that time? I was like, I think I was. This is the quote of the day. I think I can. I think I can make some progress. Maybe I can make some progress. Hopefully we can make some progress. As you all know, I'm working on Kaufman's Petting Zoo in the Lands of the Last, where a bunch of animals are soon about to face off to the death. So that is a lot of fun. But I finally determined my 35 animals. So I finally determined all 35 animals in the book. So I'm actually very happy with where I ended up at. And I'm actually doing something really interesting. So I decided that I'm going to cap it at 35, but I'm going to say there's 100 animals I'm going to make references from other characters that it feels like it's about 100 in this Coliseum type setting. But I'm only going to list throughout the course of about 8 chapters, roughly about 35 references, give or take. So we'll see. And I think I'm feeling pretty good about which animals I'm at so far. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah, I think I like it. By the way, let's see how everyone's doing. I know I saw a couple of you hop in during the stream. Holistic, always great to see you. White's here, glad you were able to join us a little bit tonight. I know you're working on Faded Fantasy, which is so cool. Hopefully it's going to come along, my friend. We still got some time, so no rush today. Adrian, hello, beautiful people. Always glad to see you over here, my friend. Hope the world is treating you well, as we're going to be embarking on your book discussion tomorrow. Very excited about that. And let's see. White's here. You're working on your flash fiction. This cracked me up. You're like 33 years of Dungeons and Dragons storytelling, sponging up vocabulary like there's no tomorrow. Well, I mean, hey, you know what? Playing any type of tabletop gaming like that, like you really evolve your vocabulary over time. So, aw. Thanks for that call out, Courtney. I really appreciate that. You're like, my first flash fiction was a Kaufman contest. If you should have a first anywhere, I pick here. The help he gives is so beyond anywhere else. And I mean, that's the goal, right? Like our goal is for us to all be able to improve as writers, so we can all hopefully eventually we'll all get to that published writer state and do very, very well telling the stories that we want to tell. ML, I love that. You're making references to Adrian's book, which is awesome. Very, very awesome. Hey, what's up, DL? Welcome into the stream, my friend. Welcome, welcome. I always love seeing new writers in the community. Would love to hear what type of writer you are. What are you working on? We have writers of all genres, styles. Drop a comment. I would love to hear. I'm a fantasy nerd working on a dark fantasy action adventure universe. Courtney, yes, please highlight my misspelling on a writing channel. Always fun. Oh man. All right. So I know what you guys really want to hear is you want to hear all 35 animals that I've decided upon. I know. All right. I know that is exactly what you want to hear. So I'm just going to list off all 35 animals and you can tell me if you feel like I've missed any. Okay. Woof. All right. Let's see. And this might actually be more because I'm listing the main characters as well. But okay, so we'll see. So here is all 35 animals, hopefully that like by the time they get to the midpoint, the reader will feel like they are in a world of anthropomorphic creatures. So this is going to be interesting. And then just wait till they get to book 2 and they're like, oh yeah, this is a world full of animals. Just kidding. All right, so here we go. Here's the animals I got in this part of the story. All right, so we got a bear, a snake, a rabbit, primates, a hyena, and a weasel. And then the giraffe is going to be the last one in the introduction chapter. Then we have a crow, a skunk, a tiger, an otter, a squirrel. We have a wolf, a fox. I mentioned the primates again. I just mentioned them. These ones are all ones that I'm adjusting, so I'm not using those ones. And my named animals, we have a squirrel, mice, a salamander, a badger, a raccoon, a possum, snail, chicken, porcupine, praying mantis. Praying mantis is actually my only bug in this part of the world, very intentionally. An armadillo and a platypus. So the platypus gets a little fun cameo. And then our medium-sized animals, we got an owl, a spotted turtle, a jaguar, a wildebeest, a giant lizard, a sloth, a panda, an eagle, a goat, a pig, a warthog, a capybara, a horse, and a zebra. And then taking up our large animals is the ox, the crocodile. I already mentioned the giraffe, the elephant, the rhinoceros, a moose, and a kangaroo. So those are all our animals, all 35. Which ones do you feel like I'm missing out on? I would love to hear. Drop a comment. So those are the ones that I got. Those are the 35. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on that. Let's see. DL, nice. I mostly write in epic medieval high fantasy. Like, hey, high five to that, my friend. You and me both. I'm writing in, is Scarecrow high fantasy? It probably is. It's just I'm at kind of like the end of the world type, so it's very dark. Mine's probably like dark fantasy action adventure, but yeah. I'm going to be working on book 3 of my series, which means you have 2 books out. That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible, my friend. Any success or tips that you've learned from writing the first 2 books? Would love to hear. Drop a comment. Let's see. So cool. I love having all writers in the community. I always love fellow fantasy writers. My favorite fantasy, everyone knows, Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is always my favorite. Lord of the Rings nerd, for sure. Followed probably by Wheel of Time was always a favorite one. Sword of Truth were some of my fantasy faves. White Sirik. Why no raven? One of my spirit animals. I think ravens are well suited to be know-it-alls. So there's actually a reason. So there's 3 types of there's 3 types of species that aren't really included in this. The first one is water species, and that's for an obvious reason. I don't have an ocean, and I don't think I could do it in a way that makes sense. The second one is bugs. So bugs, insects, and arachnoids, anything of that critter crawlery nature. They are they're in another part of the world, so they mostly haven't been captured for the most part. I will get some more fun with them in a later part of the story and series. So, and then the birds. So with bird kind, most of bird kind has gone extinct. So the birds, there's actually very few species. There's very few types of birds left, and the few that are left I very intentionally placed in the story. So one of the main characters is Crow, and I want the bird focus to really be on Crow, which is why I've kind of like minimized the other bird species that are there for storytelling. But good call out though. Oh yeah, thank you, CJ. I know, trust me, I know. But yeah, it's actually really it is heartbreaking, and I want it to be heartbreaking for a reason. There is some heartbreaking there because birds are great. So hey, what's up, Penumbra? So you said where can we vote for the next Read Now book? Great question. It's actually linked down in the YouTube description. The Read Now book club, and I was like, I'll just double check, make sure I did it correctly. Read Now April book. Yep. Everything is linked down in the YouTube description. For anybody who's part of our Read Now book club, the tomorrow is the live discussion for our April book, sci-fi book, which is Mythic by our very own author, Adrian Santiago. And then we are voting for May. Our May genre is romance. So if you want to vote for romance, go down to the submission form. It's linked down below under upcoming events and submit a recommendation for a book. And we're actually going to be voting on which book we want to read tomorrow for our May selection. So great question, Penumbra. White sir, but there is a Crow main character. A raven would be all up in his face like, you look like me, but you're stupid. You know what's funny is I actually do have a bird later. White, it's funny that you picked this up. I do have another bird later in the book that gets a little bit more of a highlight that is actually very specifically like that. So great minds think alike. I was thinking of changing what type of bird it was, and I was considering a raven. I actually was considering a raven or an owl. I hadn't decided yet, though. Yeah, I almost went with grasshopper, but I feel like grasshoppers kind of get a little overdone, and there's only one bug in this part of the book, and I want the bug that I choose to be I want it to stand out. And I think praying mantises don't always get enough love, so I thought a praying mantis would be a little more fun than a grasshopper. Hey, well, DL, like more power to you, my friend. That's awesome. One published, still working on edits and revisions on book 2. Good luck with the editing process, my friend. We all know exactly what that is like. Good luck with that process. Yeah, you're like a lot of your books fall under the adult age range with a lot of brutality. Totally understandable. And I mean, I think a lot of readers agree in the community, as long as like all the trigger warnings, readers in this day and age want trigger warnings when they're reading the summaries of books. I think that seems to be the biggest thing for a lot of readers. You know what, Penumbra? There's actually something really interesting to this. It is actually the clever birds that have survived, and there's not very many left. This is a world where most of the species are at the end of their kind, but the species that are like the most extinct is bird kind, and the ones that are still alive are like have survived for a reason. There is a very intentional reason that Mr. Crow has survived this long. And that's explored throughout the story. So that is actually explored that the story and the series, why Mr. Crow has survived as long as he has. So great call out. White's here, like, so please tell me pigeons are gone. Oh man. Yeah, you're like, you don't do trigger warnings, which is totally fine. But I do think that a lot of readers' expectations have trigger warnings in this day and age. It's really interesting because that used to not be a thing at all. That used to not be a thing. But really, it comes down to reader expectations. That's really what it is. So, and I think for fantasy, especially if it's categorized as mature adult fantasy, it might not be as necessary, but I'm not sure. So, something really interesting to think about. Let's see. Holistic, like minor birds can speak. So actually, and I don't actually touch upon this. I went back and forth on asking myself, like, okay, do I want to actually mention this in the book or not? All of the animals in the world can speak the same language because one of the spells, actually it's one of the elements, basically has used a magic that has created like a universal language. So I mean that is why I don't touch on it, and I've kind of gone back and forth on if I should. But yeah, there's actually a reason why all of the animals are not limited by different, at least from a language perspective. So okay, so DL, you feel like your like cover and blurb are like very straightforward and direct. Okay, so I mean maybe that can offset it. Maybe that does a really good job of offsetting it, which is cool. Awesome. And by the way, if you're just hopping into the stream or if you've been hanging out for a while and you're enjoying it, follow and subscribe. We're here every day with the Right Now community. Almost 500 consecutive streams and counting. If you're looking for a daily writing community with writers of all genres, skill levels, if you need consistency or accountability, you're amongst friends. So make sure to tap that follow or subscribe button and you'll be alerted when we go live. All right, my friends. So on that note, let's get some more writing in. So we're going to hop into our next writing sprint and we are going to see what we see. All right. And let's see what. All right. So I'm at 513. I need to. All right, so I only have enough time for 2 sprints today. So this means I'm going to make my second sprint longer. So the first sprint we did 25. Sprint number 2, we'll do 45, and we'll bring that up to the hour. All right, so let's do it. I'm going to cue this up. Sprint number 2 will be 45 minutes. And we're just really going to push ourselves. We're really going to push ourselves. Great start to a Friday, or great start for the writing vibe for those of you just joining me. And awesome. So I am all ready. All right, perfect. So we got 45 minutes on the clock. Whether you are brainstorming, writing, editing, branding, procrastinating, or just trying to do something in between, come join us because it's time to write now. How did that writing sprint treat you? Were you able to make some progress that time? That was a much, much longer writing sprint, and hopefully, making some solid progress. I know I felt pretty I actually felt pretty good that time. I was kind of wrapping up some of the planning elements that I had done. I feel pretty set now with all of the characters I've decided upon. And now I'm back to revising. I'm back into revision mode with the next chapter of the Colosseum. So yeah, and I mean I actually thought this chapter was going to need a bit more fixing and changing than I had originally anticipated, but I think it just needs light revisions and light story edits. So it's actually not as bad as I thought. I feel like I'm in a pretty good place actually. So very, very excited. What's up, Natalie? I know I saw you hop into the stream. We're kind of into our second writing sprint. Courtney asked a good question about faded fantasy. Right? Can searching in the short prompt be emotional searching, like as in a new purpose? That is a good question. I'll discuss amongst with the other volunteers, and we'll get back to you. Good question, Courtney. Really, really good question. DL, like nice. Got about 2 seasons written. Sounds like you've gotten some solid progress. That's really, really awesome. I'm glad we were able to make a little bit of headway today. Now, as we look towards creative writing on the morrow, we'll be back tomorrow with the live discussion for the Read Now book club. For those of you who haven't finished Mythic, our science fiction book of the month for the Read Now book club, you're going to want to stay tuned. You're going to want to join in and have fun with us on our live discussion tomorrow. We'll be exploring the things we liked, didn't like, and all the things in between. We'll be here 1 p.m. Pacific, 2, 3, 4 p.m. Eastern to discuss the book club Read Now. So come join us. We'll be here. And if you enjoyed the stream, tap that like button on your way out. Help us show the algorithm that writing streams are cool. All right, my friends, thanks for joining us for a writing sprint stream today. Able to make some good progress. Ooh, Natalie, that's super exciting. And by the way, for anyone who's participating in Faded Fantasy, we've just launched an intent to submit form. So if anybody's planning on submitting a piece of flash fiction for the Faded Fantasy fiction contest, the intent to submit form is down in the YouTube description. That's just giving us an idea of how many people are going to be competing in the contest, so we have enough judges for everyone. So if you guys could fill out the form, it's super easy. You just put in your name, your email. It's pretty much, I think, the genre. So it's just answering a couple questions, so that way we can plan accordingly. It's pretty standard for competitions. And so, yeah, we just launched that down in the YouTube description under the Faded Fantasy subheading. So anyone who's planning on participating, if you could just drop that, if you could just drop a submission there, that'd really help us out. We want to make sure that we can bring you the best Faded Fantasy fiction contest possible, because we're really upping our game for our second writing contest of the community. All right, my friends. Well, it has been great. It has been fun. And tomorrow, like I said, we'll have the Read Now book club. But for those of you who want to get writing in, Chat Soul will also be hosting their co-working writing session over in the Discord. So anybody who still wants to get writing in tomorrow night, we actually got you covered. So now we're still going to be having writing sprints every single day. But tomorrow's Saturday night will be way more laid back. It'll be with Chat Soul over in the Discord under the events. So make sure that you come join us on Discord if you're not already connected with the community. So, but I'm so happy to hear all of you are super excited for your Faded Fantasy submissions and looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Looking forward to seeing what the community cooks up. All right, my friends, on that note, it's been great. It's been fun. But unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers.
Right now.
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 Because it's time to write